How does a film shot in 16 days with a budget of $6,000 made by a group of independent filmmakers and a first-time DOP land a large worldwide festival run and end up on some of the biggest streaming platforms? Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Montgomery and I've been a horror fan my whole life, specifically really around the age of 7 or 8, when at a sleepover I was shown the film Shaun of the Dead, which changed everything in my life. I became zombie obsessed, and growing up in the sort of mid to late 2000s to early 2010s, I couldn't have chosen a better time to grow up loving zombies. Whether you had TV shows such as Z Nation and The Walking Dead, video games like Dead Island, Left 4 Dead, Dead Rising, or movies like The Dawn of the Dead remake, 28 Days Later, it was a great time to be a zombie fan. During this time of zombie mania in 2012, The Battery began its festival debut, and whilst other zombie media was focused on bloody gore or extravagant explosive gunfights, The Battery was different. The film was written, directed and produced, and also starred Jeremy Gardner. Now, the term The Battery is a baseball term, and it describes the relationship between the catcher and the pitcher. As, I'm told, in baseball, they more or less steer and drive where the game goes. And this is exactly what our film focuses on. Ben and Mickey are two baseball players, and caught in the midst of the zombie apocalypse, opt to go to the rural countryside of America in order to avoid the zombies. The film is quiet and focuses on the slow, sort of dull and dreary moments of the zombie apocalypse, whilst examining their relationship and how it evolves and changes throughout the film.
There was a contest online. It was like a Facebook of movie sites. And what they were going to do is they were going to cast a movie, they were going to find a writer, they were going to find a director, they're going to find all this stuff through this one site called massify.com. Look it up, it doesn't exist anymore.
Now, Jeremy liked this, so he wrote a script for a film called The Battery. He sent in a self-tape audition / a proof of concept film, which featured a sort of vlog of two people surviving the zombie apocalypse together. Now, for better or for worse, Jeremy never heard back from this competition, but it did leave him with a script that he really liked and thought there really was something he could do with. So he kept toiling away at the script, trimming away at any unnecessary fat that he found in it, even removing a third character from the film, leaving us with the duo we have. Now, he kept working on this film until it was as streamlined as humanly possible. Now, as years went by, Jeremy found himself frustrated with the amount of meetings and time it was taking to get anything of a high budget made.
I didn't want to make a movie where I had to wait years and years and take meetings and try to get the money. I figured with the cameras today and the talent of my friends, we could make a really interesting movie for a very, very small amount of money.
He looked back at this film that he'd written 3 years ago and realised that he could do it for a relatively cheap amount of money. Jeremy decided to crowdfund the film locally. He went to 10 separate friends and asked simply for $600 each, giving the film a total budget of $6,000. He then spent 10% of that money buying a used Volvo off Craigslist, which would almost hinder the entire film. But we'll get onto that later. Now, Jeremy and first-time DOP for this film, Christian Stella, felt that it would be good to shoot a sort of proof of concept / sizzle reel for this film, to show off the locations and get some general hype going early on.
And I actually cut together a locations video. I was trying to convince my DP to shoot it. We went to these locations, we cut together, and I said, throw some Rock Class Central songs in there, it'd be cool. And we put it up on Twitter, and the lead singer, Chris Eaton, the singer-songwriter, he actually tweeted at me, he goes, hey, that's a cool video, you guys gonna use the music in the movie too? And I was like, are we allowed to do that?
Not only did the lead singer Chris Eaton contact them giving them permission to use various songs in the film, Chris then put them in contact with the upstate New York band The Parlor, who also allowed Jeremy to use various songs for free in the film. The opening song Big Ego by Wise Blood, which is a personal favourite of mine, came from the fact that he was friends with the actor who played Mickey when they were in college together. Now, Jeremy was in a fairly good position. He'd secured his budget, got in music rights from his favourite band, and even got most of the crew on board already. Except for one thing. Mickey, the second lead in the film, had yet to be cast. Now, he originally had someone else in mind, but felt he was too physically similar to himself. He felt that Ben and Mickey should have quite vastly different physicalities to one another. It almost got to the point where Christian Steller, the DP, producer, sound mixer, and colorist on the film, was refusing to fly down unless Mickey was actually cast. Now, luckily, during the chaos, one of Jeremy's friends came up to him and said,
"Oh shit, my buddy used to play ball in college, then he broke his arm and became an actor. Would he work?" And I was like, "You asshole, like, maybe, yeah."
So Jeremy met with Adam Kronheim, discussed the film, played a little baseball, and Adam was sent the script. Upon reading it in under an hour, he loved the film, and he was cast, without so much as an audition. The production was a rocky one, even before they started shooting. Jeremy had promised Christian that he had secured all of the props necessary for the film. This was a lie, and 3 days before principal photography began, Jeremy ran out in a mad dash, securing every single prop they needed for the film. From car troubles to equipment malfunctions to even the very weather fighting against them, the crew fought tooth and nail to get this film made. The film began shooting in Kent, Connecticut in around spring of 2011, a location famous for hosting many other horror films, one of which being Friday the 13th. The production was a rough one. Almost every cast and crew member were pulling double duties, balancing multiple roles and helping out wherever they can. This even extended to Adam, who played Mickey in the film, who had to juggle roles just like anyone else. He would negotiate with members of the public to switch engines off and turn off lawnmowers, which if you've ever worked on a short film, you know just how stressful of a job that truly is, as well as doing craft runs for the extras. He did basically everything within his power to push the production forward, and that is one of the reasons why he gained a producer title on the film. The DP, Christian Steller, who shot the film, was truly flying by the seats of his pants when he was making this film. In the behind the scenes video, you can see him reading books about cinematography on his way to location for the shoot.
I'm learning how to film a movie.
On the way to filming a movie.
We're on day 4 of filming the movie.
Now, this mostly comes from the fact that Christian had a background as a photographer, not a DP. He was quoted as saying as such, "I didn't know how to film a movie back then. I was just a photographer, so I looked at everything as a photograph." This is what I believe gives the film such a unique look. The framing and composition really do look like photographs, as well as these long and still scenes. It's an incredibly beautiful film with just some amazing shots. This film was also shot on a Canon 5D Mark II, mostly because that was what Christian was already shooting with, so all they had to do was rent the lenses. This was around a time in independent filmmaking where there was a massive boom thanks to these digital cameras that were almost rivaling cinema cameras. It what led to films like this, as well as other personal favourites such as Blue Ruin. Films with amazing composition made on shoestring budgets, just made by talented filmmakers. Now, another area the film struggled in was the zombies. Which I know what you're thinking, for a zombie film that's a pretty major factor. However, this film does get away with it being such a character piece that the zombies aren't that necessary for the plot. However, they did struggle. When they first released the trailer, one of the earliest criticisms they got was that all of the zombies looked like 20-somethings who were merely just their friends. This really stung for the filmmakers, as this was kind of true. A lot of them were friends and family helping out. Now, they were able to get around this in the final scene, where they had a horde of zombies and a really diverse cast. This was thanks to putting out a call to the people in Kent, Connecticut, who came up and showed up to be this horde of zombies. While shooting the third act, it began to rain. Now in the film, this makes for an amazing, dramatic scene, and I think just looks fantastic. However, in reality, as any filmmaker can tell you, the elements are rough. What is a 5-minute scene takes a whole day of shooting, and they were out there in the rain all day. Near the end of the scene, Jeremy's teeth were chattering. The sound equipment got waterlogged and broke down, needing to be repaired there and then on the day so they could continue production. However, the crew were able to push through it. Well, almost all of them. Now, do you remember that little Volvo they bought secondhand with 10% of the budget? Well, that Volvo, which had about 270,000 miles on it, had not only been featured in the film, but was also used to shuttle actors to locations, move equipment, and God knows what else. Well, when they pulled up to where it would be the final resting place for the car in the film, there was a bang, and then smoke rose from the front of the car and oil spewed out from underneath. The car had died in its final resting spot where it laid in the film. Jeremy said if it had happened a few days earlier, it would have wrecked us. We would have had to tow it around, but it just so happened to last until the very last spot we needed to shoot. I'll never forget that car for doing that. I think the story of this Volvo is truly representative of the film and the behind the scenes of it. We're talking about a second-hand Volvo with about 270,000 miles on it. This was a family car meant to do grocery runs and pick the kids up from school, not to host two actors in the back of it for days on end, be filled with cigarette smoke, have booze spilt all over the dash and the carpet, and zombies banging against the window. But it did. The car pushed itself forward again and again, giving every single last piece. That is what independent filmmaking is. It is giving yourself completely to something, and sometimes too much. So, they'd finished filming, and with 2 weeks of reshoots they were done. They'd gotten everything they needed, and it was time to start what I would argue is the worst part of any filmmaker's journey, the festival run. Jeremy said, we spent around $500 and got rejected by something like 7 fests before we got into Tellerud Horror Show, where we had our world premiere. After that, we had a few more rejections. Then we got on some very big international festivals. Once you start winning fests like that, that's when festivals start coming to you. After this, the film began picking up steam. It was shown at over 50 different film festivals, won 9 awards, received 3 nominations, and I'm sure many more IMDb isn't counting. And the film practically ended its festival run with them being flown out to Brazil to present their film. When talking about the film festival circuit, Jeremy was quoted in saying, "The interesting thing about the festival circuit is, in the beginning, you pay and pay and pay and hear nothing. And then if you're lucky enough to get into a good festival, other festivals begin waiving their submission fee. And then by the end of the circuit, we were actually paying us screening fees. It's a long, strange, rewarding process. Same goes for the travel. We held a fundraiser at a local bar to help us get to go on the first leg of the circuit. By the end, there were festivals paying for our travel." I love this movie. I showed this film to Emily, the other person on this channel, if you've seen our videos, and Emily said something where she was like, "This is a film that was made like just for you," and I do agree. It's an amazing movie. It is quiet and silent and has this melancholy about it. I truly love this film. It's got such a quiet beauty around it and captures this moment and time that I don't think will ever be caught again. This film is amazing, and I love it. And as a filmmaker, I admire the journey that they went on to get this film made. I think this is the epitome of independent filmmaking. The fact they were able to make this with a budget smaller than Kevin Smith, Robert Rodriguez, and this film isn't held up to that same level, I think is really shocking to me. I don't know why more people don't talk about this film. So if you're gonna take one thing away from this video is, please watch The Battery. If you've watched The Battery in the past, watch it again, buy the Blu-ray, support the other actors and filmmakers' other endeavors. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate you taking the time. We really want to grow this community and see your opinions and make cool content for you. So consider sticking around. We really appreciate it.